How's it going, everybody? It's Raider. I'm here. So today we're looking at the 7.1 Fire Mage. Now this guide will help you with your rotation, stats, and talents, and so forth. And we're going to look at bursting rotation, a little bit additional information you might need to know while playing this spec. So let's dive right into this and have some fun. 15 talent tier here. Conflagration. Fireball applies conflagration to the target, dealing additional fire damage over 8 seconds. Now this is a really good ability along with Pyromaniac. Pyromaniac should be your go-to on single target, but you can pick conflagration if there's a lot of adds tied into the fight, or you're just clearing trash and so forth, because this is what's really cool about it. It ties into your fireball and your ignite. And the reason why is enemies affected by either conflagration or ignite have a 10% chance to flare up, dealing fire damage to all nearby enemies. So it's a really cool AoE splash damage ability. 15 talent tier here, you have two to choose from: Shimmer or Cauterize. Cauterize, when you take fatal damage, it instead brings you up to 35% health real quick, then you burn for 28% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. So it helps, get you up when you're about to die pretty much. It's like a cheat death, but mage version. And your healers can heal you up really quick, and it can only affect your character every 2 minutes with this ability. So it's kind of risky, but Shimmer is really cool, and I'll explain why. You have 2 charges of blink now, and you teleport 20 yards forwards on a 15-second recharge each time. It's unaffected by global cooldown and castable while casting, so it helps you cast abilities on the move as well as get you out of situations where you don't need to be, catch up to targets, and so forth. I love this ability. I pick it 100% of the time because it's my favorite. 45 talent tier here, you can choose between 2 as well in this. You can pick between Encancer's Flow and Rune of Power. Rune of Power is your strongest out of both of those. Rune of Power is a 40-second recharge, places a rune on the ground, and you can stand in it or within 8 yards, and then you get 50% increased spell damage and has max of 2 charges. Encancer's Flow is for your movement fights where you can't stay still. Encancer's Flow, magical energy flows through you, building up to 20% increased spell damage and diminishing down to 4% increased spell damage, cycling every 10 seconds. 60 talent tier here, you only have 1 to choose from, regardless. Flame On is a 45-second cooldown, immediately grants 2 charges of Fire Blast, and this is super good to chaining off those Pyro Blasts, get those hot streaks in there, and so forth, and it helps with your burst as well. So this should be your go-to 100% of the time. 75 talent tier here, Ice Flows, 20-second recharge, has a max of 3 charges. This ties super well with Shimmer. Now I'll explain why. When you use Ice Flows, what you're going to be doing, if you have to go cast while on the move, I'll show you real fast. So let's just say I'm going to do all my charges real fast for fun. Cast Fireball while on the move. Since I had 3 charges activated, I can get off 3 fireballs and so forth. That helps you get out of situations where you don't need to be and so forth, just like Shimmer, and I'll explain why. I'll cast a fireball, Shimmer, still casting it, fireball, Shimmer, still casting it. So it really helps you out. It doesn't cancel your ability while you're casting and so forth like a regular blink would do. So it helps you with movement, and it kind of gives you a leg up on the fights. And if you can use these to your ability maximum potential, really, it really separates you from other mages, and it can make you a much better player in all overall situations. Living Bomb, the target becomes a living bomb, taking fire damage over 3.5 seconds, and then exploding, dealing additional 25 fire damage, or such and such fire damage, sorry, to the target and all other enemies within 10 yards. Other enemies hit by this explosion can become a living bomb, but this effect cannot spread further than that. So it can chain to additional target when it expires and so forth. Unstable Magic is a complete passive. Your fireball has a 25% chance to explode on impact, dealing 50% additional damage to the target and other enemies within 8 yards. So this really ties well. But honestly, for your AoE, pick Living Bomb, single target, Unstable Magic, because you're not going to get anything on a Living Bomb on a single target boss or encounter. 100 talent tier here, you can honestly pick any of these, but once you get enough crit and you have a high amount of crit and higher item level and get into higher level content, Kindling should be your go-to 100% of the time. So I'm really just going to focus on that right now. It's complete passive. Your Fireball, Pyroblast, and Fire Blast critical strikes reduce the remaining cooldown on your combustion 1 second. Now I'll explain what combustion is. Super cool ability, got a total new rework with this expansion, 2-minute cooldown, engulfs you in flames for 10 seconds. I mean, you look fucking cool when you activate this. This thing is killer. And increases your critical strike chance by 100%. Yes, 100%. So you're going to be critting like crazy, getting fat damage out of there, and it grants your mastery equal to your critical strike stat. So you're going to be, your ignite's going to be ticking hard as shit. So this is really cool, and it's off the global cooldown. So let's go over stats. Critical strike, 100%. You want this as much as possible. You want to be dripping in crit. You want to have it as much as possible. And then you want to go to mastery, which is your ignite, what helps burns targets and so forth. And then you want to go to versatility, then haste. Now it is not bad to have haste, and I want to explain why. Haste affects some of your spells like Fire Blast, and it helps. You see that green number off to the side in the tooltip? The more haste you have, the lower that'll go down, but you don't want to stack haste. You want to stack crit, then mastery, versatility, then haste. So remember that. So let's look at this neat little ability before we get into our rotation here. It's a complete passive. It ties into your spec. And the reason why it ties into your spec is because granting 2 direct critical strikes in a row will make your next Power Blast or Flame Strike instant cast and cause it to do normal ignite damage with those abilities. Now, why do we need critical strike? Why do we need to get hot streak and heating up and so forth? Why do we need to be firing off Power Blast? Well, I'll explain why. Power Blast will be most of your damage. We are known as the fire casters that just throw huge boulders of fires at players or, you know, enemies and so forth. We just burn shit, and I'll explain. So we cast a critical strike. We get this heating up proc right here. Then we get another one, let's say from a fireball or so forth. You get a hot streak, what makes your instant cast Power Blast and Flame Strike. So you want to fire off that Power Blast, and it deals a large amount of damage, and it doubles your ignite damage on the target and so forth. So how do we fish these? Basically, fishing means how do we get these heating up procs and hot streak procs? You can get them from Fireball. See, I got one from a Fireball right there, heating up. Now all we need is a second critical strike, and we can get it. It just takes a little RNG, and maybe there we go. So I have a high amount of crit, and see there's a lot of dead spots in there, but I'll show you how to prevent those. And so when you get that, go ahead and fire off that Power Blast, and there you go. So how do we avoid those dry spots? We have a couple of abilities to help you with that. Fire Blast. Blast the target, and what it does, it grants a guaranteed critical strike. So say like I got that from a Fireball, and you know, you have to cast while on the move, or you really just want to get another critical strike in there, just another Fire Blast, and there you go. It grants that instant cast Power Blast or Flame Strike. And the same thing with your artifact ability, Phoenix Flames. 45-second recharge, hurls a Phoenix at the target, doing splash AoE damage, and as well as doing a critical strike. So you'll see a lot of critical strike with this spec. And what we want to do if we're out of Fire Blast, you can cast Phoenix Flames, but you also have to look at this talent that we picked, Flame On. 45-second cooldown, like I said, immediately grants 2 charges of your Fire Blast. Now this really helps you with your burst and so forth, helps you get out of dry spots, and really forces a crit, so you can fire off as many Power Blasts as possible. So this is really, really useful. Let's talk about AoE. AoE is very cool with this spec. I always liked it because everything is just engulfed in flames and just burns, and it's super cool. What you want to do, you have a few abilities. When you're casting on the target, you're automatically going to get a passive AoE burn from your ignite. It's right here. Each time you do a fire damage to the target, which is basically every single one of your spells, you're going to be applying ignite to your target along with conflagration from your first talent tier. And then when you apply those fat Power Blast in there, it doubles the ignite pretty much. So you want to put as much as you want, much as you can into those targets with those Power Blasts and so forth. And you can even use your artifact ability like I just did, which does AoE splash damage. Now you want to make sure you have your conflagration on the target if you picked it. And you want to throw in as many Power Blasts as you can. Throw in some of your artifact abilities to crit for those hot streaks and so forth, and we're going to look at Living Bomb too. While you're doing AoE, your AoE rotation and so forth, you can throw a Living Bomb on targets that are about to die so it'll prematurely erupt, or the target will explode, and to get damage out of there fast, because it does do a lot of damage. Living Bomb does a lot of damage in this expansion, in my opinion, and it helps out with getting down adds. So let's just say this is just like a random satyr, and I'm over here trying to like cleave down these imps around him or so forth. I'm going to get this Pyroblast in there, I'm going to apply a Living Bomb, so forth, and if it's like coming at me, I'm going to like Dragon's Breath and so forth. Now you'll see another ability light up, Flame Strike. Now you don't want to use this until you have your artifact trait for it, and I'll explain why. Aftershocks. Flame Strike calls down one additional pillar of fire each time it casts, so it's going to do pretty much, like, you never want to hard cast this, by the way, but I'm just showing you for reference. So it did a pillar, it'll do another one back to back, so it only becomes useful when you have that. But by itself, when it only does one pillar, it's really weak, it hits really bad, and it does really bad numbers, and it just hits like a wet noodle. So you don't want to do that. You want to focus on burning your targets with your mastery, which is Ignite, doing AoE splash damage with your artifact ability, and Living Bomb on the target, and sometimes Dragon's Breath. So let's pretend that we're doing our opener, and that training dummy is Ursoc or Cenarius or something, just a boss or something you want to take down in a raid, and we have that DBM counting down on us in 5 seconds. Start casting a Pyroblast, like hard cast it, and it will critical strike, just like that. What you want to do after you do that, lay down Rune of Power, Combustion, Fireblast into a Pyroblast. Flame on, artifact ability, there you go. Lay down another Rune of Power, Fire Blast, artifact ability, there you go. That's pretty much your burst right there, and if you want to, you can go back and rewatch it a couple of times, slow it down, because the magic of YouTube lets you do that now, so it's really cool. Additional information here is the spec really revolves around you instant casting your Pyroblast. You want to make sure you can get 2 critical strikes in a row, so you can do that and so forth. You never want to hard cast your Pyroblast unless you're trying to open up on a fight, so you can get that guaranteed critical strike in there and so forth. You want to make sure you're using Phoenix Flames for your AoE trash, as well as your Living Bomb, sometimes Dragon's Breath, never Flame Strike unless you have the artifact trait for it. And you want to make sure you're just burning shit as this spec, because it's what we're known for. So if you have any additional information you want to ask me, or any comments, comment down below, give me a thumbs up if you want to. But until then, guys, I'll see you next time, and I'll see you in Legion.